When I first arrived on campus, everything felt too big, too loud, too fast. The kind of place where people passed you by without ever really looking at you. I wasn't the kind of girl who made friends easily, and to be honest, I didn't mind being alone. But even solitude needs a home. For me, that home became the library. Not the front section. Not the cafe-style reading lounge where everyone pretended to study. It was the back of the library. Past the long, dusty shelves. Past the old wooden chairs that creaked every time you breathed. There was one row, the very last one, where no one ever went. I don't know what drew me there the first time. Maybe it was the quiet. Maybe it was the isolation. Or maybe something was waiting for me. I found it by accident one afternoon. I was trying to escape a group of students laughing too loud in the common area. I turned into an aisle I'd never noticed before, and there she was. A girl, maybe my age, sitting on the floor, cross-legged, her back to the wall, a book open in her lap. She didn't look up. She didn't move. Just sat there, reading. I almost turned around, not wanting to bother her. But something about her presence. It was calming. She looked like someone who belonged to the silence. And I needed that. The first few times I passed by, she never said a word. I wasn't even sure if she noticed me. But after the third or fourth visit, I sat down on the opposite side of the aisle. Not close, just within sight. I opened my own book and pretended to read. That was how it started. A week passed, 2, and then one day, as I settled into my usual spot, she looked up for the first time. Her voice was quiet, softer than I expected. "You come here a lot." I nodded. "It's peaceful." She smiled faintly. "It's the only place I can think clearly." We never exchanged names that day. We didn't need to. Some silences speak louder than introductions, but over the next few weeks we began to talk. Not much, not deep. She would ask me what I was reading. I would ask her the same. She always had the same book, an old cloth-bound novel with no title on the cover, the kind of thing you'd find in a forgotten attic. And every time I asked her what it was about, she would give the same answer. "I'm still figuring it out." Sometimes I'd catch her just staring at the pages, not turning them. Her eyes weren't reading. They were remembering. I finally asked for her name one rainy evening. She hesitated, as if deciding whether to tell me. Then quietly said, "Mira." It suited her. Simple, software A, little sad. There was something timeless about her. She never wore anything flashy, always long sleeves, always the same worn satchel at her side. Sometimes I wondered if she was a literature student like me, but I never saw her in any of my classes, or in the halls, or in the dining area. Just the library. Just the last row. And always at the same time. Like clockwork. One evening, as we sat quietly reading, Mira looked up suddenly. Her voice was low. Different. "Don't stay here when you're alone." I looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" She hesitated again, then whispered, "This place isn't safe at night. Not when it's empty." I let out a small laugh, trying to keep it light. "Why? You think a ghost's gonna come out of the bookshelf?" She didn't smile, didn't blink, just looked at me with eyes that didn't seem to fit her face anymore. "I'm serious." Her voice had an edge, a warning. The silence changes when you're the only one left. I tried to ask what she meant, but she had already gone back to her book. We didn't speak again that night. After that, something shifted. I kept visiting, but now I watched her more closely. Sometimes she looked pale. Other times, distant. And there were moments, fleeting but real, when I'd look up from my reading and catch her already watching me. Not in a friendly way. Not cruel either. Just deeply. Like she was studying me. One night, I stayed a little later than usual. Mira wasn't there. It was the first time she'd missed a day. I assumed she was sick, or maybe just busy. But I felt strange sitting there alone. The air was colder. The silence, wasn't the same. It wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like something pressing against my skin. I heard a book fall somewhere behind me. When I turned, no one was there. I packed up and left early. The next day, she was back. I asked if she was okay. She looked at me a long time before replying. "I told you not to stay here alone." That was all. No anger, no warmth, just sadness. After that, I started to notice things. Other students avoiding that back row, a janitor who never cleaned past a certain point, the way the lights above that section flickered more than the others, and always, Mira was there, sitting, waiting, reading the same book that never seemed to change. Still, I went back, even after the warnings, even when my gut told me not to, because in some strange way I felt safe near her. Not safe from something outside, but safe from something inside myself, like she was holding back a storm I didn't even know was coming. But deep down, I think I already knew. Something wasn't right. The way she never seemed to blink. The way her voice sometimes echoed, even when she whispered. The way I could never remember seeing her walk in or out. She was always just there. Until one day she wasn't. And that's when everything truly began to unravel. I didn't mean to go back the next day. I told myself I'd study in my room, maybe in the cafe on the 3rd floor. But something about not seeing Mira, it unsettled me, like I was missing something I didn't even understand. So I went, back to the same aisle, the same chair, the same corner where silence felt more alive than stillness ever should. But Mira wasn't there. Just the shelves, the air, the dust, and that strange hum of quiet that didn't feel empty. It felt watched. I stayed anyway. My book was open, but my eyes weren't reading. I kept glancing toward her usual spot, the floor beneath the last window. Empty, but something about the air felt heavier, like walking into a room where someone had just finished crying. That's when it happened. A soft thud, a book falling, 2 shelves behind me. I froze. It wasn't loud, but it felt deliberate, like someone wanted me to hear it. I turned around slowly. Nothing. I walked to the sound, half expecting to find someone from maintenance, but the row was empty. Just a book on the floor. Its cover was blank, torn at the corner. Pages yellowed like they hadn't been touched in years. I picked it up, but the moment I did, the lights above me flickered. Just once. A single, brief pulse. Enough to raise goosebumps across my arms. Then silence again. I returned to my chair, trying to steady my breath. That night, I couldn't sleep. Because in the stillness of my room, I kept hearing it. A soft shuffle, like paper brushing against paper. A whisper. Too faint to make out, but too real to ignore. The next day, Mira was back. She didn't greet me, didn't even look up. Just sat there, her hands trembling slightly as they held her book. I sat across from her, the way I always did. After a few minutes, I said her name. Mira. She raised her head slowly, and her eyes, they looked hollow, not tired, not distracted, empty. "You came back," she said quietly. Her voice didn't sound relieved. It sounded like a warning. "I heard something yesterday," I told her. She didn't blink, just whispered back, "They know you heard." I felt cold. "Who?" Mira shook her head. "Not who. What?" There was a pause. Then she leaned in slightly and said something I didn't understand then, but would come to fear later. "Something watches when it's quiet. Don't let the silence notice you." I stared at her. What does that mean? But Mira just looked down and didn't speak again. That was when the whispers began. Soft at first. Random. Almost like my ears playing tricks on me. But over time, they grew. Sharper. More specific. Sometimes as I walked past the rows to Mira's corner, I'd hear my name. Not loud, not urgent, just whispered, from behind the books. Rhea. I'd stop, look around. Nothing. Other students didn't notice, or maybe they didn't hear it at all. But I did. And the strange thing was, I wasn't scared at first. I was curious. Like something was unfolding beneath the surface of reality, and only I was seeing the edges peel away. The library became different after that. Books moved when I passed. The same aisle lights flickered, but only when I was alone. One evening, I saw something. A shadow. It moved between shelves, fast, but just slow enough to catch in the corner of my eye. I followed it, thinking maybe it was a student. But when I turned the corner, no one. Just rows of silent books, and that feeling again. The feeling of being watched from all sides. I returned to the last row. Mira was waiting. Before I could even speak, she whispered, "They're drawn to the ones who listen." "What do they want?" I asked. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she said, "They feed on awareness. The moment you start to notice them, they notice you." Her words sat in my chest like a stone. I tried to laugh it off, but even I didn't believe it anymore. Things were changing. And Mira, she was fading. I started seeing her less. Sometimes she wouldn't show for days. And when she did, she looked worse. Paler, quieter, almost transparent. I once reached out to touch her hand, just to make sure she was real. She pulled away so fast her book dropped to the floor. "Don't," she said. Her voice cracked, like she hadn't spoken in days. "You can't anchor yourself to me. I'm not safe." I wanted to ask her what she meant, but her eyes, they weren't looking at me anymore. They were fixed on something behind me, something I couldn't see. One night I stayed after closing. I hadn't meant to. I lost track of time, trying to study for finals. By the time I looked up, the library lights had dimmed and the clock on the far wall read 11:07 p.m. I packed my things quickly, but as I reached the exit of the last row, I heard something. Whispers. Dozens of them. All at once. Too fast. Too layered. They weren't coming from behind the books anymore. They were above me. Around me. Inside me. I ran. Out of the aisle. Past the checkout desk. Toward the exit. But the main door wouldn't budge. It was locked. Then, from behind me, a thud. Then another. Books, falling one by one from the shelves behind. I turned and saw no one. But the aisle, Mira's aisle, was glowing faintly. Like the light above it was breathing. I didn't want to go back, but my feet moved anyway. And when I reached the end of the row, she wasn't there. No Mira. Just the book. Her book. Open to a page I'd never seen. There was writing on it now. A line scratched into the margin. Faint, but still fresh. It read, "They have her." I stared at it, unsure if I was awake. Then I heard it. Her voice, whispering from the other side of the bookshelf. "Don't stay. Not now. Please." It was Mira, or something using her voice. And in that moment I realized, whatever was happening, whatever this place was, I was already part of it. I ran that night, left my bag, left the book, left behind every ounce of logic I had. But I knew something now. Mira hadn't just been warning me. She'd been trying to save me, and I might be too late. That evening the rain came fast, heavy, sudden. The kind that makes the world outside feel like it's being erased, streetlights dimming, windows shivering, the ground swallowing sound whole. I hadn't planned to stay late, but the storm made the decision for me. My dorm was across campus, and I didn't feel like getting soaked just to sit alone in my room, haunted by silence that had started to feel too familiar. So I stayed. I told myself I'd catch up on notes, just for an hour, maybe 2. The library had a strange comfort now, even with everything I'd seen. Because, despite the whispers, Despite Mira's warnings, it was the one place I still felt like I might find answers, even if I was afraid of what they were. The building emptied out fast. One by one, chairs creaked as students gathered their bags and disappeared into the storm. By 8:30, there were only a few of us left, and by 9, I was sure I was alone. Completely. I didn't notice it at first. The quiet had become routine, but there's a difference between peaceful silence and silence that feels aware, and tonight, the silence was thick, like it pressed against my chest. And Mira, she hadn't come. Her corner was still. The book she always carried wasn't there. And that emptiness, it felt louder than any whisper ever had. I glanced toward her row for what must have been the 10th time. Nothing. Just shelves, shadows, and stillness that felt like it was watching me breathe. I tried to focus, but the lights above me dimmed, just for a second, and something changed in the air. It grew colder. Not the kind of cold you notice with your skin, the kind that creeps into your bones. And then a sound, soft where breathless, breathing, behind me. I turned slowly. Nothing was there, but I knew I wasn't imagining it. I stood up, telling myself I'd leave. Just grab my bag and go. I hadn't even taken a step before the books behind me fell. 3 of them, one after another. Top shelf, middle shelf, then one at my feet. It landed open. The pages fluttered, even though the air was still, and across the open page, in faint pencil lines, were the words, "Don't look up." My chest tightened. I didn't want to. But I did. And above me, nothing. Just lights. But one was flickering, buzzing faintly, and something about the way it pulsed made my stomach turn. I backed away, slowly, until I hit the end of the row. And that's when I realized Mira's row was behind me, the corner where she always sat. I turned. Empty. No books. No bag. No Mira. Just the wall, and a chill so sharp I could hear it. I whispered her name. Once. Quietly. Mira. But there was no answer. Not even a whisper back. Just the storm outside, muffled behind the walls. And the softest creak of wood, like someone shifting their weight. Behind me. Again. I turned faster this time. But again, nothing. No one. But the book. The one Mira always carried. It was there now. Placed neatly on the floor where she used to sit. Open. Waiting. I stared at it. I didn't want to pick it up. But something in me, something I didn't understand, did. I knelt down and reached for it. And as soon as my fingers touched the page, I saw her. Not in front of me, but in my mind. Like a flash. A scream with no sound. Mira, soaked in rain, running through the aisles of the library, looking over her shoulder, terrified. Then, caught. Dragged back. A scream that never escaped her mouth. And the last thing I saw was her hand, reaching up from behind a shelf, trying to hold on to something, trying to warn someone. I gasped, dropped the book, fell back onto the floor, and suddenly, I wasn't cold anymore. I was burning. My skin felt hot, like fire was pulsing under it. And in the silence that followed, I finally heard the real whisper. Not in my head. Not from the shelves. From beneath me. From the floorboards. Run. That was Mira's voice, but it was strained. Weak. Like it had taken everything she had just to speak one word. And I listened. I grabbed my bag, tripping over books, knocking over chairs, nearly slipping on the tile as I sprinted down the hallway toward the exit. But the front door, again, wouldn't open. This time the keypad was dead. No lights, no sound. Just the echo of my breathing and the storm clawing at the windows. I turned, backing against the door, eyes locked on the darkness behind the front desk. And then I saw it. Not Mira, Not a person, but a shape. Tall, pale, distorted. Its head tilted, like it didn't understand me. Or maybe like it didn't care. It stepped forward, but its feet didn't make a sound, like it wasn't touching the ground at all. I held my breath, clenched my eyes shut, and when I opened them, it was gone. Just like that, and the door behind me, it clicked, unlocked. I don't remember running through the rain. I don't remember unlocking my dorm, or collapsing onto the floor, but I remember the book, still in my hand, soaked but intact, open to a single page, and across it, written in the same faint pencil, "You're next if you stay." That was the last time I saw Mira's corner. The next day, I avoided the library, and the day after that. But on the third day, I went back. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. And what I found changed everything. I wasn't sure what made me return to the library. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe it was the quiet insistence in my bones, pulling me back. But when I stepped through those heavy doors, the air felt different. Not cold, not warm, just waiting. I headed straight to Mira's corner, that spot where she used to sit, the last row. I knelt down. There it was, the book, open, its pages smeared with something dark, something wet. I reached out. My fingers trembled. I touched the page. And then the world twisted, the library faded, the walls melted away, and I was somewhere else. I saw her, Miera, running, her eyes wide with terror, her breath ragged. She was looking over her shoulder, running through those same aisles, through the shadows. The whispers surrounded her. A choking silence filled the air. Her feet pounded against the floor, echoing in the emptiness. She stumbled. I saw her fall. The world seemed to hold its breath. And then, darkness. I felt the coldness rush over me, the same chilling cold from the library, and the whispers grew louder. Voices, hissing, calling. I tried to look away, but I couldn't. I was trapped, watching Mira's last moments. Her face twisted in fear, her eyes wide, her mouth opened, but no sound escaped. And then, she was gone. Suddenly, the vision shattered. The world snapped back. The library was just as I had left it, the book still open, the blood still there. My heart pounded. I looked up. The librarian was standing there, calm, silent, watching. His eyes held a secret. He spoke, his voice low and steady. "Mira died here, 4 years ago, right where you're standing. She was found at the end of this row. The storm that night. A terrible accident. Or maybe something else. No one knows for sure." I wanted to ask more, to understand. But his gaze was heavy, full of sorrow. He said, "Some things are better left alone." But I couldn't. Not now. Not after what I'd seen. I turned back to the book. The pages whispered stories. Stories of fear, of shadows, of something dark lurking in the silence. The librarian watched me, waiting, and then he said, "Be careful, Rhea. The library holds more than just books." I left, the book in my hands, my mind racing, questions flooding in. Who, or what, had been with Mira? What had chased her? What waited in the silence? And why had it chosen me to see? That night I didn't sleep. The vision haunted me. The whispers lingered. The blood-stained pages burned in my hands. And deep down, I knew. This was only the beginning. The morning after the vision, I woke with a weight pressing on my chest. The memory of Mira's final moments wouldn't let me go. The book, the blood, the whispers. I knew I couldn't just ignore it anymore. I had to find out everything. I spent hours at the campus archives, digging through old newspapers and records. Most of the files were dull and routine: campus events, student clubs, library inventories. But then I found it. A small article tucked away in the back pages of a 2019 edition. It was brief, almost an afterthought, but the headline screamed louder than any words. Tragic death in campus library. Student found in aisle 14. The name beneath was the same as the girl I had seen. Mira. The article said she had died alone. That stormy night. Exactly where I'd been sitting. They never figured out what caused it. Some said it was an accident. Others whispered darker possibilities. But nothing was proven. No one had talked about it much after. Except, it seemed, Mira had. That's when it all made sense. The warnings, the strange behavior, the urgency in her voice when she told me not to stay alone. Mira wasn't just a student. She was a guardian, her restless spirit trying to warn others, trying to keep them safe from whatever had taken her. I realized then that the library wasn't just a building full of books. It was a place where past and present collided, where secrets were buried beneath pages and shadows, and I had been pulled into its story, whether I wanted to be or not. That afternoon, I went back. The rain had stopped. The sky was heavy, but the storm had passed. I found the last row. I sat down on the cold floor, right where Mira always had. The book was gone. The shelves were silent. But the air was thick, filled with anticipation. I waited, and then I heard it. A whisper. Software faint, almost a breath, but unmistakable. Mira's voice. "You still have time?" She said it slowly, as if every word was a gift, a warning, a promise. My heart thudded. I wanted to ask what would happen if I stayed too long, but she was gone before I could speak. The silence rushed back, cold and heavy. I understood now. The danger was real, and I wasn't safe. Not yet. As I stood to leave, a chill ran down my spine. I realized the burden had shifted. The warning was no longer just hers. It was mine, and maybe, from now on, it would be mine to carry, to protect, to pass on. The library doors closed behind me. The quiet was different now, less welcoming, more watchful. And as I walked away, I glanced back once more. A shadow flickered, a faint shape sitting quietly on the floor, waiting, watching. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew this much. Some stories never end. They just wait for someone new to listen, to warn, to survive.